You're listening to the Christian Indie Artists and Songwriters Podcast, the place where faith, music, and life intersect. We exist to help Christian indie artists and songwriters just like you get songs heard. Hey, I'm here with my good friend Meg Ammons, coming to us live from the west coast of Florida. How you doing tonight, Meg?
Hey, I am great. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I don't know what it's like on your side of the state, but over here it's breezy and it actually feels like Florida fall. Now, I know that you came from up north. You said from farming and stuff, so maybe this is a pitiful way for me to say it feels like fall, but to me it feels like kind of like fall tonight. So
Yeah. No, I think there's a little hope that we're around the corner from fall's my favorite time of year, and I like cool. I like sweatshirt weather. Is probably my favorite weather of all time. So I'm here for it,
Also excited for people to hear about your story. I know I've heard a little bit of it along the way, but I'm super excited for you to share. So with that, just getting started, how did you get into music in the first place?
Oh gosh, well, let me do the thank you for having me here. It's an honor. I feel like kind of out of my league and I'm grateful to be here. So my story, let's see. I am a country girl. I do live in a city now, and I've spent a lot of my adult life in cities. But I think my heart was really shaped as a girl who would ride her horse. It's almost going to sound unbelievable to a lot of people today, but I just feel like an old soul a lot of the time. And I literally grew up riding my horse bareback in Pennsylvania on family land, generational family land. And
Wow.
I would lay on my horse and look at the clouds, and lyrics. Literally, I've written songs that long, and I may or may not be in my 40s now. So if that gives you any indication, I've been doing this for a little while, at least processing life in lyrics, and just thinking. Those songs wouldn't have been any good, but I did them. I wrote them. Just as in a grade schooler, preteen and all that. So in that way, music has been in me just honestly, as long as I can remember, in that kind of shape. It's a very private expression of it for me. My mom can sing, and my dad had a beautiful tone in his voice. He always was sad that he actually had pleurisy as a child, which is a lung disease, a disease of your lining and infection. And so he could never get a full breath to sing like he wanted. He would kind of be sad about that once in a while, but he had a nice tone in his voice, and he loved to just sing around the house. And my mom loved to sing harmonies and things. So we weren't like a family band. It wasn't like a serious level, like any professional put yourself out there level of music, but music was in our home. And now my dad's mom played piano at the Presbyterian church where he grew up. I believe that there's a lineage of musical heart for the Lord in my family, and I think that I got it, which is a beautiful thread for me, and a humbling thing to feel like I get to steward this, and I believe that I'm not going to force my children into music or anything, but I just believe that it's going to probably reappear. And there's been some words spoken. I even believe that maybe my daughter will pass that on. We'll see. I've got 3 young kids. But oddly or interestingly, although music was in me in that way, my dad, I think he was just very in love with the Lord when I was younger. And, kind of that had ramped up in his own life from just a revelation that there's more. And I watched him walk that out and pursue it, and my mom as well, when I was a teenager or a grade schooler. And so because my dad, I think, maybe saw that gift in me, and he did not want to exploit it, or if it's a well, you don't want to poison the well, that kind of analogy. So yeah. I did not sing in high school. He didn't want us to join the choirs. He didn't like what they sang, and he always, in so many words, would tell me that you're set apart for the Lord, and you're set apart for the Lord. And I didn't really struggle against that. I just trusted that in coming from him, and I hadn't really wanted to be in the choir anyway. I don't know. So, but I knew music was in me, so I would write things. And we had a piano, and I picked up by ear a little bit. I had a few years of piano lessons here and there that, it taught me something, but I would mostly just rely on my ear and not my eyes. So I do wish, like everyone says, right, that I had been forced to work harder, to be more proficient on that level, right? It's everyone. Yeah. And then I think in high school, I took another year or two to kind of renew my interest. And then I started college. I was going to, I had a full ride scholarship, academic scholarship. I was really interested in nutrition and things like that. And I was kind of exploring that because I had a full ride. So what am I going to study? But then my third year, I was about to apply for like the specific program, but they only accepted a limited number of people. And if you're not accepted, that will derail your plan. You'll have to regroup and everything. And I just felt really restless. And I'd started singing at church, actually for the first time. I didn't sing in church really until college. So it was really in college. So maybe 18. About 18 is when I really started singing anywhere that anyone would hear me. I think because my parents were really careful that was not an exploited thing, and they were more concerned that you grow in character and not just leverage any scrap of talent that someone may have.
Like a lot of times, people come to that conclusion later on where they're, like, my identity is not who I am, but your parents kind of fostered that from the get-go, where you didn't have like necessarily the opportunity to fall into like, oh, I'm Meg, the singer, the piano player. Like, you're Meg, the follower of Jesus first. And then these other things, kind of came in. So I love that. I mean, that's a really cool perspective. And I'm sure that, that's obviously shaped part of, what you're doing now. So kind of with that in mind, so you started singing in college, or, in that college area. So then what brought you into wanting to or what kind of got the bug to start really pursuing it?
Well, I think it was those years and I really would say my junior year of college, after some restless days where I just knew I needed to seek God. I realized I didn't see myself doing say being a dietitian and having an office and counseling people about their nutrition. I don't know, even though that is interesting to me. And I nail those days as just when I really received a call for ministry. And I did finish out that semester, but then I took a semester off and worked, moved back home to save up some money, and I went to Bible school. I'd never been to Texas before, but God led me to Christ for the Nations, where I went for 2 years and did the music program there. And I loved those years. And God grew me in some very good ways. I just learned, I got connected with some people that poured into me and believed in me. And I grew in some skills, just being able to sit and play, chords, reading chord charts, for example. It's kind of different than your traditional music lessons you might have as a second grader, and that just enabled me a lot to help myself write. I'd always been writing. Even with some college Missouri friends, we recorded a CD. So I've recorded, I guess, in some ways for a little while. No one can find those anywhere, probably, and that's all right. But I got some opportunities through CFNI. They make an album every year, and I got to sing on some of those. And then I was working at a church after that. So then I think just a big thing that formed my heart was there I was, I'm beginning to do, serve and do music in a very public way. Sometimes playing, but usually just singing, as I don't feel like my strength was a, piano player so much, but I do write from piano. And so I was leading a lot of worship and writing songs on the side, I think I would say. And I was really desiring music or songwriting community. I had music community. I was among lots of people leading worship. CFNI is full of wonderful people doing that and teaching that and leading it well. I received a lot from them. My favorite class at CFNI was a songwriting class. And it just was so life-giving because it was connecting these, when you write on your own for any length of time, you figure some things out just by trial and error. And then hearing that broken down and taught, it just made so much sense and put sometimes just some vocabulary to things I had figured out, but didn't know there was, a whole process that people have written about, so it just made so much sense to me. And it really just, I'm sure my songwriting improved because of that class, but I was just encouraged to do it more. And I was encouraged to see that I actually had had a gift in it, because it had been pretty private for me up till then. Some songs you share with friends and family and things, but I had never really put myself out there a lot. And that was also, pre-social media. Let's just talk about that, that it was harder to connect. I mean, all your connecting really had to be in person. Right. You couldn't connect across cyberspace and find an audience while sitting on your couch in your pajamas, so it was just a private thing. But I thank God for those days because it was just deepening my own personal well, and my own roots to be deep. And if there's one thing that Christians need in this day and age is some deep roots, right? James talks about being blown about by every wind and wave of doctrine. So I think that applies to all of us, the things that culture wants to throw at us and everything. So a rooted person. Anyway, I wanted community, and I served at some great churches on staff. I was, after Bible school and wanted some songwriting community, and I had worship community, but, if I could write an advice column for pastors, I would say no church says, oh gosh, don't write original songs. We don't want those. No one ever says that. But until like these last few years, I don't think there's been a public or very talked about way to help steward. It's not a matter of desire, but it was a matter of, how do you steward songwriters in your congregation? People were mostly getting their music from somewhere else, and there wasn't so much music coming out of your own church house, and I wanted that, and I could have that vision to see that created. So I think every time, because we had to move for my husband's work and things, but I've just seen God be faithful to me, still having that desire, but like everywhere God's led me, it's kind of increased more. Like I've received really, really good things from the churches I've been at. As God's matured me, He's taught me that He's put the heart in me to be part of the solution and not just wish there was an answer, so that's been growing in me. And then the songwriting continuing, learning to co-write. And I had a window. I was pregnant with my second baby, and a friend had recorded an album, and I'm like, oh man, that's something I've been wanting to do. And she was younger than me. And so it just kind of like pushed me forward. Maybe that last push I needed, along with my husband encouraging me. I recorded that year. I did part of the album, about 8 months pregnant. And then I went back after my second son was born and did the vocals, because it's a little hard to sing when you're 9 months pregnant.
Yeah. You don't make an emergency run to the hospital while you're doing vocal takes and stuff.
It was, I heard on even one of your earlier podcasts, someone saying like, hey, here we are, like defying some statistics. Like, I didn't start releasing music at 18 and, have some amazing rise. It's just been God working in me, and me being sometimes cautious and sometimes too cautious, maybe, but just trusting God and learning to believe in myself more, and being sure that I should step into these things, and then just becoming more willing to stick my neck out, so.
Yeah, it's the steps of confident faith, just believing that God is working in the future, and we just have to step into it. So before we started recording, we were talking about how that kind of transitioned you in looking for a tribe. So how important and so take us through that journey a little bit of how you kind of found your songwriting tribe, and then also like how important that's been to kind of bring you up to date to today to what you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't stress enough the difference that community makes. And my personal example, I just look at my own life and see that. I recorded an album I'm proud of, and I was just actually listening to it the other day, but it was one I did without community, I would pretty much say. I mean, I worked with some great people in the recording studio, but it was just kind of a figure it out as you go, as independent, not backed by anyone, personally financed it, and just not really having a pattern to follow or a lot of outside support, like, hey, anyway, it just felt kind of like an independent thing, figuring it out on my own. And then since then, I mean, I do have community now. I got to go to a Kingdom Songs retreat and meet some people, and a Next Level songwriting retreat. And then I got connected through Emerging Sound and People and Songs awesome, all of these groups, awesome people doing awesome things. And, they gave me some encouragement and some, let's say, validation, just, like, hey, I see the gift of God in you. And that goes a long way when you feel far from recording and far from hitting some targets in your life. So, hey, speak those words over people in your life, but validating that and calling it out. The times I had laid it down, some out-of-state moves where like, okay, so that album I made, and then we had an out-of-state move, and I had 2 babies, and we were fixing up a house way out in the country, and it just felt so like, wait a minute, I kind of did this thing, and now, months later, my life looks completely different. Like, God, what were you thinking? Well, no, it's trusting God at work in all of it, and laying things down and then having it brought back with this new confidence and new assurance, like, oh my goodness, why would I ever doubt that you had this calling on my life? Why would I think that it was done and you had, so just beginning to revel in the plan God has for me, that it doesn't have to look like anyone else's, to trust the timing in my life for what he wants to do through me, and trust that even if I don't know the reasons why things take longer, or, just that he can adjust the timeline and the plan at any time he wants. And knowing that if he did it, it's because it will be good. It will be good for the glory of his name and good for my own life. And then yet he led me to community, and he brought these things. He gave them back to me. I feel like I've laid them down a couple times in my life, and he just gave them back to me. And that's so humbling. And it's just such a beautiful story that God does with our lives. I don't mean that I trust him perfectly every day, or that I don't struggle. And so,
yeah, I think too, no, that's awesome. And I think another piece that I've noticed personally, and through people that, I've built community with too, is there's an accountability aspect, because, when you're kind of on your own and you're just writing songs, and like, that's awesome and it's fun, but like, there comes a point where like, would anyone even notice or care if I stopped doing this, but other than, of course, God giving you those inspirations. But then when you have like a group of co-writers or group of, people at church that actually are invested in your journey. So yeah, having that community of people that are willing to, like, not necessarily call you out in a bad way, but like help refine you. Like you said, iron sharpens iron. Like,
yeah,
that's so crucial. So I love that you brought that up. So, with that, like I said, your story is really interesting, how your parents were just like so aware of that idea of like letting you develop character over ability necessarily. I mean, of course they didn't like not let you do it, but as far as like it being like who you were, like you're a daughter of Christ before you're a singer or piano player. So like along the journey from then till now, because you're in the ministry, you've had lots of positions, you've had lots of songs, you've done great, amazing things. What's a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self? Maybe that it doesn't have to be like, oh, you should do this instead at all. It can be something positive, but like, what's looking back, like what's something you would say to yourself and our audience to kind of encourage them on their journey?
I think being brave enough to be yourself is one thing. Pitching is a good example of like, they're looking for certain things, and it can be really easy for us to lose our uniqueness, maybe. And to think that I just need to sound like this person or do this kind of thing like these people are doing. And not that we can't apply some excellence we see other places to our own lives. And I'm all for that completely. But to not apologize for who you are, to own it. I just think it's really high value for me to be authentic and feel like I'm real and not trying to present just what I think someone wants me to present. And I'm sure I didn't do that as well as, when I was, say, 18 and have these musical dreams or stirring, like, I know these things are in me. Just to don't apologize for who you are and don't feel like you need to change who you are. Yes, grow and refine yourself, become the best version of yourself. But I heard, I think I was at some kind of conference when I was about 20, say, and I think it's one of those powerful things that stay with me that has become that advice I would give to an 18-year-old. And it said, what you compromise to get, you have to compromise to keep. And so when you're looking at building the life that you believe God has for you, just this awareness of like, if you are caught up in someone else's game, it's like a horrible thing to have to maintain, and to lose yourself, like to sell your soul, let's say, or just, for that thing you think you want. There's the one-time factor, but then it's a horrible life you're setting yourself up for, to sign up long-term to be someone that you're not.
Wow.
And that is such a disservice to who God made you to be, and I will say, I mean, the world doesn't need another Carrie Job and Natalie Grant. Praise God that they're there and doing what they're doing, but we don't need two of someone else. Don't let someone steal your identity, but just be yourself.
I mean, that's probably going to be the name of this episode, is be brave enough to be yourself. I mean, that's awesome. And, I think what came to mind when you're saying the thing about authenticity in your own music is that's sort of like the rise of the indies, because like when everything, like we talked about pre-social media, where it was only like one-to-one relationships in person. I mean, it was a much harder to track down people and just build relationships, because, you had to physically be there, and then you had to be like, there's just so much more to it. But,
Yeah.
With that, like when a record label said like, this is the sound that is popular, that's going to fit into the radio box, and that's what everyone strived for. But nowadays, like, since radio is not like the only thing that you can do, like, yeah, you can totally be yourself, and we should, because if we're uniquely and wonderfully made, then like, why would we try to copy somebody else's unique and wonderfulness?
Yeah. There's never been a better time to speak what the Lord has given you. Use your voice, do what you can, because it matters. It's important. You being brave enough to write the songs that God's put in you reaches people that other songs won't reach. And so if you're chasing certain things, that could derail you from being you. So it takes tremendous courage to continue to be you, especially when you know that you could kind of lose yourself just a little bit and then have some kind of instant gratification from that. And it's really tempting when you have bills to pay and when you want music to make a way for you, when we all dream of our music becoming at least self-supporting. And I think it's just an awareness we move forward with. I'm not saying that looks like you take on the world with a chip on your shoulder or anything like that. But it's just the awareness of like being true to the voice of the Lord for your life.
Talking about authenticity, I'd be remiss, and I don't know if I ever used that word, so I'm excited to finally say it. Be remiss. Go Brian. Yeah, to not talk about your authentic song that, when this airs, is going to be coming out tomorrow. So can you talk about City of God and that amazing song that's going to be coming out, and just talk about that and anything else that you want to share with the audience about stuff that you've got going on?
I'm very excited to be able to say that I have a song coming out tomorrow, October 16th. It's called City of God. I wrote it with a longtime great friend of mine, Cedric Israel, super talented in all things musical. It's a really personally meaningful song, and this is why. I sat down with Cedric, and I had been meaning to write together for some time and just never had. And finally, we had a date in January in 2019. My dad had been struggling with some declining health for a while and was just very, very sick. And it wasn't really looking good. I don't think at that time yet we were saying he's literally dying, but it just, problem after problem, it was getting worse. And so as I'm sitting down to write, my heart is just stewing in that thing, like watching a loved one suffer. It, kind of makes you reflective, and it really strips away real quickly. Like, I want to write a hit right now, I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. I just wanted to write something really meaningful and something very timeless and true, because I think those kind of anchor things, just my life was needing that in that moment. So that was where I was as I started this write. And after some talking, Cedric and I was just thinking about the journey of life, and it doesn't always look like what you hoped it would. And there are seasons of suffering that you can't just pray yourself out of the Hail Mary, and there's things that don't get better the next morning. And there are long seasons and painful seasons and discouraging seasons and all these things. And I just wanted, I think, at least subconsciously, I didn't enter the write saying this in a listed out way, but my heart was just wanting to speak to that. And so we ended up writing the song. And part of, I think, the vision in my head was just, there's a Christian classic called Pilgrim's Progress. And to me, this song really is almost a musical parallel to that kind of thing. And it's just, it talks about keeping your eyes on the city of God. And so the verses are just describing these places we find ourselves in life and saying, not denial or not, not denying the place you're in, whether you're tired or it's steep or it's darkness, these great allegorical, beautiful imagery kind of things. And I geeked out about that a little bit, I think, but just the truth in them being that this is temporary, so like we're on our way somewhere, and keep your eyes on the city of God, because someday, it's that great hope that we have and the great promise that every Christian has. It's a very universal Christian thing, because in some way we have all experienced a lot of pain, or we will, or we know people that are walking through these kind of valleys, and a lot of like little happy sayings that we like to post on our refrigerator, or, like you're just grasping for something very real in those moments. And we just wanted to be able to somehow say that. And it seemed appropriate. It's kind of like a hymn, honestly, just that style. It seemed to fit this theme. And we wrote it anyway. So we finished it, I think, that day, or we just maybe came back and touched it a few days later. And I remember sharing it on my Facebook, like live, like a little live version. And I just knew it was very meaningful to me to process what was happening in my world. I'm such a daddy's girl. And so watching this very capable, strong, country gentleman who worked hard every day outside, whether it's hot or cold, and took care of his animals and his crops, and just seeing him not be able to do those things, So anyway, just that was a big thing in my life in front of me. And it helped, that song just helped me wrap my heart around a lot of very tangible hope, like this is what matters in the end. And so we had a work tape for it, and my dad was in the hospital, and he actually did never get to leave the hospital. He died in the hospital a month later. But I sent the work tape, and if you're a songwriter, sometimes work tapes are just your voice, and they are nothing special. They make you wonder if you should be a singer. They are definitely nothing special. And the quality, but I sent it, I think, to my brother's phone to play for my dad. And it meant a lot to him. And he listened to it a lot the last week of his life. And just the backstory to that is that my dad knew that I was called and had a gift from the Lord. And he was, cautious that I stewarded it well. But, he didn't like every song I wrote, because he just wanted them to be the truest thing. And, so like, the fact that my dad, I was able to share something with him that God had given me that meant so much to him, in his hardest season of life. It was just that supreme validation that it's that why, like, why do you write music? Well, like that was the biggest why moment I could ever have. And, despite what anyone else may ever say, any other compliments you could ever get, like the fact that God used something that he had given me through me to minister, that was a huge, just, I will carry that for the rest of my life, just a treasure. And so we sang it literally at his bedside, my mom, his wife for 52 years, and his children at his bedside as he passed. And we sang that over him, tried to. So there were some tears, and as he passed away, we sung it over him, and it just became really high in my heart, like a big deal. Like, I need to record this song just in honor of my dad. And I hadn't recorded for a while, after the album, and I've recorded, with Emerging Sound and through People and Songs, and through my other churches, some songs since then. But I hadn't done anything on my own, hadn't released anything in like my own name. And I just felt like this is supposed to be, because I saw its power to encourage people in a real life, real moment. So it took me a little time to have a way to do it, to, figure out how I could do that, and, financially and things like that. and to be sure. And then we had a out of state move here to Florida. So I had to kind of regroup and think, what can I do? And that God led me through a friend, a recommendation to you. And you have been awesome to work with on this song. And I just believe that it's something unique and special that, I don't know, I'm just as excited for the world to hear it. We wanted to make it feel, it's a somber kind of subject, but yet we wanted it to feel like hope too, not just this is truth in a stodgy kind of way. I just really wanted to make it feel beautiful, and I wanted to feel like an experience, so it's kind of cinematic, I suppose, in that way. We just wanted to capture a lot of emotion, and you really helped me do that so well. I appreciate you producing and your musical opinions. I listen to the track and I hear your touches, of course, everywhere. So I'm really pleased at what we were able to put together.
I'm excited for you and for your whole family and for the legacy that this song is. And this, just this reminder of like your dad and everything. There's just so much to it. So I'm just really excited to see.
I know we could talk too long about it probably. Yeah, I believe it'll encourage a lot of people. I feel that that's the mission of this song, So,
what ways is best for people to reach out to you as they want to follow along in your journey, your music journey? Like what social media platforms you hang out on? Where can people find you?
They can find me on the usuals. I have a Instagram, Meg Ammons, and Facebook. My artist page would be a great place. Oddly, my artist page is not liking me right now. So if you send me a message there, I can see it, but I'm having a hard time replying. So probably the best place to message me would be Instagram, honestly. Message me on Instagram and I'll get back to you. I love to reply to people. I love to connect with people. Please follow me there if you like what you hear, and I'll have more music coming in the future. So this is just a re-entry. My kids are old enough to let me put some more energy into music, and I'm just super excited for what is to come.
Awesome. Well, before we go, I want to pray over you and all God's doing through you. So God, thank you so much for Meg. Thank you so much for her heart and just her stewardship of the gifts that you've given her, God, through the songs, through her worship leading ability, through being a mom and a wife, and just to cherishing her family and all the things that they're doing as a family unit, and this in support of your vision and your path through Meg and all that she's doing. God, we just thank you for this song that's coming out to honor her father and her family, and just the legacy that is, God. We know that you are ultimately the one that gets these songs out there, God. You task us as your children to write them, Lord, but at the end of the day, you're the one who will get them to who needs to hear them, God. So we just pray favor, blessing over this song and all the other things that Meg and her family are doing to just pursue you, God, with their lives. They're giving all they have to find you, God, and just to go after you, Lord. So we just continue for wisdom and encouragement and inspiration and creativity in their lives and everything they do, God. We just thank you for Meg and her family. And we just give you all the glory because you're worthy of every bit of it. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Brian, so much.
We want to help reach as many Christian indie artists and songwriters as possible, and one way we can do that is with your help. So if you could take a minute and leave us a review on iTunes, that would be so appreciated. This is how the iTunes algorithm will push this content out to more and more Christian indie artists and songwriters. So like I said, if you could just take a couple seconds, leave us a review, that would be so awesome, means so much to us, and we would really appreciate it.